Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Johanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We had a little text string going yesterday between the
Oh,
Packers and the Cardinal game.
such a bad day. Probably a great day in your household. But yes, I sent you some funny little photos, including my husband and being very grumpy about a couple plays. Our teams played yesterday, Dr. Chang. So it was a perfect Dean's match duo on
Yeah,
the NFL network.
it was good. My wife grew up in Green Bay, and grew up in Wisconsin, so we're Packers to the core. But that kind of leads us into our discussion today. We have a wonderful guest from Santa Rosa, California, Dr. Thomas Chang. Dr. Chang, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Hey, thank you so much. It's just a privilege to be here, and I very much appreciate the invite. So it's going to be fun to just chat with you both.
Well, we're looking forward to it also. Dr. Chang, we're fairly formal on Dean's Chat. If it's okay with you, let's go with first names, Tom and Joe and Jeff.
That sounds perfect.
All
I
right.
love
Well,
it.
Tom, thank you so much. We're really excited. We've been looking forward to this interview for a couple months now. And so we'll start with just a brief bio because we'll kind of get through some of the different aspects of your career as we talk today. But Dr. Chang currently works in Santa Rosa, California, with Sonoma County Orthopedics and Podiatric Specialists as part of the Balance Health Network. Previously worked at Redwood Orthopedic Surgery Associates. Prior to that, though, got his undergraduate degree from Washington University in St. Louis with his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a minor in biology. We'll come back to that one because I want to get more information on that. Went on to do his podiatric medical school at Temple University in Philadelphia, and then completed his 3-year surgical residency training at Emory University in Atlanta. But let's first start with, how did you go from electrical engineering into podiatric medicine? Tell us about how you found podiatric medicine.
Yeah, no, I'd like to do that. Thank you. I grew up just always feeling like I was a big science person, and I had a lot of interest in science and math. So I thought college was a great opportunity to explore, those interests, and that's what I did. So I naturally fell into engineering. It was just something I had some excitement for when I first started school. And it's interesting. I played soccer through my younger years. I played soccer through high school and in college as well. I remember having a terrible soccer injury, just a bad ankle sprain. I almost broke my ankle, and I was just laid up in my room, my dorm room, and I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom said, "Well, your cousin Gerard is, a foot person and a foot doctor." And I said, "Well, I don't really know that much about that at all." And I said, "Well, I'm fine. I don't need anything more. I'm just going to be recovering for a while in my room." So within like an hour of that, conversation, I get a call from Gerard. And, just so you all know, I'm sure you know this now, it's not a secret out there, but Gerard Yu was my cousin. And that's just been such an incredible privilege for me to have had Gerard in my life through those years. But so Gerard's mom and my dad are brother and sister. So I knew Gerard all throughout, my younger years. I was living in Maryland initially when I first came from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong, moved to Maryland because that was just where we immigrated to Gerard's hometown. And so we grew up, but he was always 10 years older than me. And then unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was really young, when I was only 8. And then so we moved to Seattle, and that's where I spent most of my high school years. But we always kept in touch, but I just didn't know Gerard that well. And then I was able to talk to him about my foot injury. And he said, "Well, listen, you got to come down to Atlanta. Just I'll fly you down to Atlanta. Don't let anyone touch your foot." And I said, "Well, Gerard, I'm fine. I think I just have an ankle sprain. Um, I really don't need any surgery. I don't think I need anything more." Um, and he was just always, he was so gracious, saying, "Well, listen, I'm right here. If you need anything, call me, and I'll be there to help you, and we can guide you and get you down here if you need." So that was it. But, it was just an interesting introduction to podiatric medicine because I wanted to go into medicine, actually, even entering college, even though I was an engineer. About a fifth, maybe like 10 to 20% of our engineering class had medical interests, and it was okay to be an engineer and study other things. A lot of people in medical school are from a lot of backgrounds. So, anyways, I always wanted to go into medicine. I didn't really know what area, but I had a lot of foot and ankle injuries. I had friends with injuries, and I just thought, that sounds pretty cool. I could maybe do sports medicine, maybe kind of, focus on that aspect. And so shortly after that, I started looking into medical programs, and clearly I spoke with Gerard, and that's kind of how it all started, really. He was a huge influence, and clearly I was, obviously so lucky to be able to call Gerard and talk to someone like that about looking at the future of podiatry, and he was an incredible inspiration. I mean, I'm very biased, obviously, because we're related, but regardless of that, I've always looked to him as one of the people that I've always admired fully in terms of how he gave to the profession, how he kind of educated, what he brought to so many people. I've learned more and more about him over the years. I mean, even to this day now, I was just at a meeting in San Diego, and pretty consistently, people will come up to me and tell me something about Gerard. They just say, well, I know you and Gerard are related. I just want to let you know that he was such an incredible influence on me. And it's just incredible to hear these stories, really. These stories are so, heartwarming to me. And I share them with his family all the time. And it just kind of keeps the memory of him very active in our lives. And it's just something and I think about him honestly pretty much on a weekly basis. But that's how I got started. And it was really just as simple as that. But it was really so incredible to have that first exposure.
Clearly a lasting legacy that certain people kind of imprint
Yeah.
on us. And I think that's really beautiful. And it kind of transitions us into our next talking point. You yourself have given quite a bit to the academic progress to the profession. And you just mentioned you were just at a meeting just recently in San Diego. You've lectured internationally and nationally over 450 times, roughly 15 to 20 meetings, possibly a year that you are attending. Can you talk a little bit about what academic medicine has been to you or meant to you? What your favorite things are about academics? One other fun fact is you were the past chairman for the Department of Podiatric Surgery at the California College of Podiatric Medicine. So maybe you could also talk a little bit about your experiences with resident and student education.
No, sure. That's something I'm very dear to my heart with, and I just love talking about it because that's really where I think my career has been in podiatry. I was very lucky to be able to go down to Atlanta for those 3 years and train under the Podiatry Institute. Even, as a first year, you're already involved with all the programs. They do weekly, rounds around the area, as well as monthly, kind of a mini residency for doctors around the country that can come and spend a few days with the podiatrist in town locally. So as a first, second, and third year, you're exposed to all these aspects of education, as well as the fact that the PI puts on all these meetings around the country as well. So residents are involved with that. And even a first and second year, you have, designated topics that you're supposed to, kind of present a lecture for. So right away, you're just kind of engrossed in this educational environment. And that PI is part of the residency program. It's kind of separate, but it all is, everyone works in between the two of them. So first and second year, we're writing papers, we're going ahead and being part of, other projects where the attendings kind of bring you on. So you're kind of expected to be in that educational mode. And I think you kind of accept that, knowing that the PI does these meetings and you're going to be part of that throughout the training. So I've always been rooted in education. I just feel like it's something that I feel proud that I've had a chance to participate at the level I have. I'm not a political guy. I really don't do a lot of things outside of what I try to do the best I can is just educate and treat patients well. So I think that's really been my kind of my focus for the last 30 plus years. So, and that was it. And then, actually, I right away pretty much wanted to contribute in an educational format. So right when I graduated, I went from residency graduation right to the Department of Podiatric Surgery at CCPM. So I really never went to practice right after that. And interestingly, you may know this, but Gerard Yu also finished his residency program at Doctors Hospital and went right to the Ohio College to teach. So at that time, I just thought, wow, he's done it. Oh yeah, and Mike Downey and Scott Millay, those two were also right from that program into the Pennsylvania College. So I said, shoot, if those guys can do it, I'm going to try to go back to the West Coast and see if I can and get involved with the school there. And it was just an incredible timing and stroke of good luck that Steve Palladino was retiring to Kaiser the same year I was coming into, that area, and there was an opening in the surgery department. And so anyways, it was just perfect. I could apply to that position. And, people say, well, they're never going to take you. Come on, you're an East Coast guy and you're Doctor's Hospital, and all those guys are, more chill on the West Coast. They they don't want someone coming in and being all high strung from the East Coast. But when I first went out there, Larry Olaf was the dean at the time, and the guys that legendary guys in the surgery department. It was Al Burns and Josh Gerbert and Bruce Dobbs and Bill Jenkin. Those guys were just so warm, and they, I think at that time in their career, they were so well established that they were willing to take a chance and have someone younger and also from a completely different background come and maybe add some diversity to the local area. And they were just so great to welcome me, and they were so supportive. And I just respectfully sat back for the first year and just tried to learn as much as I can. But I think it was nice to be able to integrate and share thoughts from the other coast. And it was really just a perfect first step for me. I mean, I feel like I was able to. I didn't really know if I could even teach at a level that brought much experience to the students because I never had practiced, but I had so much energy and an excitement to share all the things I'd learned. And I just think that it was just a nice step for the kids or the students to have someone different from that, California teachings to somewhere from the East Coast. And I think that was exciting for them as well. So it was really a great start for me. And then ever since that time, I've really just always felt like, hey, I've been able to touch people in ways that I feel might be helpful in an educational format. And I've always tried to keep that going, and so if and when I've been able to participate in educational meetings, or, organizations, ACFAS, ABFAS, AO, those are just incredible kind of opportunities I've been able to be part of. I've always just embraced them and just felt privileged to be part of that. So I still feel that way now. So it's really something that I hold very dear to my heart. Yeah.
Tom, that's interesting about transitioning to the West Coast, because I was a student 87 to 91, and Dr. Gerbert, Dr. Dobbs, Dr. Burns. I imagined coming out of residency, going into that Parnassus group, podiatry group, must have been a little bit intimidating.
Well, I mean, I thought it was just an incredible opportunity. I actually, like I mentioned, I grew up in Seattle, and when I grew up there and I learned about podiatry, through Gerard and the East Coast world, because I went to PCPM, I heard so much about this incredible Seattle program, and my mom and family thought, oh gosh, if you had a chance to come back here, it'd be great for you to be back home. And it was such a goal for me to try to get into that program. And anyways, when it came around to residency, I thought so much about it, so hard about it. And I said, I really like to go to this program, but I also had an opportunity to try to go to Atlanta. So I thought to myself, I'm going to be on the West Coast the rest of my life, I think. I mean, my mom, my family's here, And I just feel like that's where I want to end up. So if I can now, I'd rather go to the East Coast, or rather get some teachings from other regions, and then I can just integrate that and just learn more than someone that stays in the same place, their whole career. So that's why I chose Atlanta, and that's why, and then I was so excited to come back east or come back west and just kind of share and kind of complement, both areas and see what I could do to help provide a little bit of a different perspective for people. But honestly, that's more selfish because it was really the best for me because I was able to learn, all the different philosophies from both areas. And I felt that was always, something that I would find as a blessing because, not everyone gets exposure to all these different special areas of the country. And so that's kind of that was my goal. And I'm glad I was able to come back west. So
It's so interesting, isn't it, Jeff? Like the things that we tell students all the time, like it is okay to choose a region. Like I don't want to make it sound like that's not okay. Like I want to stay not necessarily in one city, but like regionally. Like I think that that's at this day and age, the training is good enough in so many places that you could stay in one region. But I find it so fascinating when people are willing to push that comfort, what was it, Dr. Loader, the comfort curve, right? I'm going to try something new because I know I will grow more. I'm picking this with intentionality that I want a different experience. And so I think that's really neat about that story that you shared.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm the one that probably benefited from that more than anyone, but I find that's just given me a lot more exposure in life and just it just keeps my life exciting. The challenges and those times when you put yourself a little bit at risk are what makes life fun, right? And so it's been great.
I have a question for you, Tom. When you were at the PI and you were doing your residency in Atlanta, were you an educator? Was it in your blood before you got there, or did you become an educator? I don't know if that's a fair question.
Well, I think, well, first of all, my mom, pretty much was a teacher her whole life. She was a teacher for 50 years. And I think that was just kind of what I grew up with, wanting to, be educated and also keep my learning, current at all times and being challenged. And then when I was at PCPM, there were opportunities to tutor and be TAs in different classes. So I started that because I just had an interest in that. And I was doing well there in school. So I wanted to see if I could help others a little bit as well in ways that I thought I was successful in some of the classes. And so that was just interesting. And it made me know the material better, right? It made me be better about really being clear about why I understood something the way I did, or how I could explain it to someone instead of just memorizing. Because I think for me, it was helpful for me to find ways that I could really kind of share tools that I found to help me be a better learner. And so I already had a lot of interest in, as we were given opportunities to educate in Atlanta, pretty much from day one, you're doing the mini residency programs, you're giving talks already. And it's so interesting, even as a first and second year, we can, these doctors from around the country that come in with 20, 30 years of experience that are asking, me and my co-residents how to do something that I just thought, wow, I can't even believe that I would even have the opportunity to share something. But it's really the peer group that I was with, and these people, I'm a good parrot, I can easily parrot something that John Rook told me or Dalton McGlamory and all these guys that I was listening intently and observing every day, and I think after a while it just becomes what you feel is you're comfortable with. So yeah, and it was amazing to me that even at that age I could be someone that had a little bit to offer to some of these well-seasoned doctors that came in. So I just kind of focused on things that I felt were important and helpful to learn and hear, and I was just hoping to keep doing that. So a lot of guys leave those programs and go on to private practice and other, great opportunities. But I just always felt like I have to keep going in this educational direction. And I honestly think, sometimes those programs hope that there's a percentage of those residents that would like to continue spreading the word or sharing, those teachings, because that seems to be the philosophy of those places, to try to educate and make a difference out there.
It's kind of like a trip down memory lane, because when I was in school, we so enjoyed Dr. Palladino. And I remember when he retired from academics, and you didn't waste any time hitting the ground. You were immediately voted like the outstanding faculty, like 1 year into it. And I remember, Tom, I heard so many great things like, oh my gosh, California's doing awesome, Dr. Chang this, and you're there. And anyways, kudos to you for making the move, taking a risk, making it happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. It's been really wonderful that I was able to join at that time. It really gave me a lot of excitement and just kind of charged me to do more and more every day.
And I'm curious, you talked a lot about, and I find this interesting too, the people that sometimes really push into academics and stay in academics. They're those that have a lifelong love of being a learner. I'm curious what your learning style was as a student. Are you a visual person? Are you a reading person? What was your what did you gravitate towards?
Well, it's funny. I have an interesting background, like you mentioned, because I was an engineer for 4 years in school. And then I went into medical school. And I have to say that out of those, when you compare and contrast those two aspects of learning and exposure to materials, engineering school was really hard for me. It just was. There was just concepts and principles and those types of things that I had to really understand well. And I had a decent background, I think, but there's, it just was really difficult. I remember spending many, many all-nighters in engineering school just trying to figure out problems. And when I went to medical school, it's equally as hard, but it's a different type of rigor. It's more volume, it's repetition and just staying on top of things. And I think it was just more memorization and recalling and trying to, hold a lot of volume of information in your mind for the next Friday exam, and then just kind of doing that over and over again. So I was, I just think I stayed on top of it every day, because people that I think struggled more had a lot more other pressures. They had family and they had jobs, and I was just lucky that I was just a student, and I think I could stay on top of it more than maybe some other colleagues, where I just made sure I didn't let a day or two go by where I felt like I had to catch up several days. So I think so. I just share that with students in terms of the rigor being more of volume and not necessarily the difficulty of the material, because you can memorize things if you just keep it going. And then I would post different things on my wall so I could see it, even if I didn't want to. I can remember all these funny mnemonics that we used to make. Yeah. My good friend through school and through my 4 years of PCPM and also through my residency was Luke Cicconelli. And I know you know Luke because he's, very, very well known, and I know he's been on the Dean's Chat. But we met just the first day of PCPM, and we were roommates for 7 years pretty much. And it's remarkable, being around someone that also equally motivated and pretty damn funny, that makes you look at everything with a different perspective and just keeps me laughing. So I just had easy motivation from being around people like that. And then I found more inspiration from being around more really, kind of intelligent and just very, people that were just so dedicated and committed to the profession. And I just think it just rubbed off that way, and it's nice to be surrounded by people that inspire you on a daily basis.
Tom, I think it's interesting because I caught that too in your CV immediately. I thought electrical engineering. I've worked with a bunch of engineers, and they're not comfortable with unknowns, right? In medicine, there's no black and white. There's every imaginable shade of gray, but that's not always true in engineering. And the mindset and the brain, the kind of way the brain works is completely different from my experience. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I always felt like once I suffered through those 4 years of engineering, that I was hoping that it was something that gave me a foundation for me to continue my academic learning and in a way that was beneficial. And I honestly feel that as I've moved into, surgery as part of my specialty in podiatry, I just feel like the foot and the structural foundation of how we function, biomechanics, it's all mechanical engineering. It's really just moments and forces and balancing all those forces and trying to make sense of alignment and how that affects, ultimate function and failure. And I think because of the engineering background, I always felt like I was able to understand some of these pathomechanics and mechanical, things that we need to be good at. So I always felt like I had a little bit of an extra, I don't know, a foundation that I could fall back onto. And I've always found, trying to use that. Oh, I naturally just gravitate towards, thinking about mechanics and engineering principles as I think about structure. So I think to me that was really a bonus for me, and that's been in my mind helpful. And I'm super happy I did it. And I still wish I could integrate it more. I've always wanted to have a mathematical model of the foot that I feel could explain more, and integrate more engineering principles, that was more understandable. It didn't have to be a complex thing. It just, I've always tried to make things easy and understandable as I've educated. And I think there's still a way to do that, but I have to have more energy to do that.
And probably time. Just infuse a little energy and time into anything, and it would probably get there. And that's a beautiful pivot point, or transition point, I suppose. I would love to get some of the insight or history into the collaborative effort that you had creating the textbook. So I'm going to shamelessly plug your textbook. Maybe I have to put it by my face because the blurry. So the Master Techniques in Podiatric Surgery. Yes, I have a hard copy, and I have to do a personal story here because I don't buy textbooks. I am a very visual learner, and so reading for me is about as effective as just sitting in a dark room and doing nothing. So what I loved about your textbook is the photographs and the diagrams and the text that you have. It's so interesting to know that you were an electrical engineer because it breaks things down into its most simplest parts, but it demonstrates it with a visual that for me as a learner was what I really needed. So you have sold, I think, over 10,000 copies at this point, which is outstanding. And you donate a portion of your proceeds toward medical mission work and global health, which I think is, again, just outstanding. So can you talk a little bit about the textbook, how that started and all the details therein?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a little bit blurry to me now, but it's probably one of the things that I feel very proud about. And thank you for mentioning that. And it's just another aspect of education, but it's, when we were residents, I think that I probably took more pictures in those 3 years than I have since I've left. And, we used to joke that DPM stood for Doctor of Photographic Medicine, because when you were down there every day, you could not be in any room or in any surgery as an observer without a camera on you, because at any time, those guys were trying to finish up an article, or they're trying to, get the textbook chapter written, and you just needed cases and you needed pictures and clinical and surgical pictures. So anyways, we just got to be good at repetition and taking the right picture in the right angle. And I've quickly learned that, when I took the wrong picture, I couldn't teach it, or I couldn't teach anything as well as if I just had a better picture. It's interesting. It's a very simple concept, but the point is that I just knew that there are certain things that I could maybe share better if I had a better picture. And I just started to think about, how important that is for education in terms of the visual. And so and after I was teaching at the school, that was really remarkable, because just being in that position in the surgery department and being visible on the West Coast, there were just opportunities that come along. And one opportunity was someone was looking for maybe a younger doctor that was interested in possibly, being involved in editing this textbook, because there was one that was Masters of Orthopedic Surgery for Foot and Ankle. And I think, Ken Johnson did the initial one, and then I think Kirioka did the second one. And they were looking for a podiatric version. And I just remember being called by someone in Philly, because that's where Lippincott is. And I went to school there. Maybe someone had passed my name on, and I was at the school as well. And they just asked me if I'd be interested in kind of looking at that project. And it was just really fantastic. And I was already involved with some of the textbook chapters for McGlamry's third edition. And I just thought, wow, I could really make something that might be a little bit different. I didn't want to compete with McGlamry's at all. Obviously, that was where my loyalty was. But I called them and I said, this is a different textbook, and I think I can frame it in a way that is just different. It's that there's not as much historical and just a complete description of a topic. It's just trying to maybe teach someone surgery the way that you guys teach surgery every day. And I got their blessing. I think that was important for me to do that. And then I said, I'd love to take a look at it. So the whole goal of the textbook was just to have a way to teach people surgery and not really worry about, the 4 or 5 different variations of that procedure and how it evolved. It's just really to say, listen, you got the diagnosis now, and you think that these procedures are the proper procedures to treat your diagnosis. How do you do those procedures and feel like you're executing them well? Mm-hmm. And that was really the purpose. And I was just hoping to share that in a way that was maybe simple to see and read and hear and write, and just look at the pictures and hopefully it did that in some part. I've gotten so many comments about the textbook over the years, which I feel very grateful for. But in the beginning, it's so funny. In the beginning year that I had the textbook out, I would get these different emails from people around the country and around the world, and 2 out of 3 of them would be something like, "Hey, I really enjoy your textbook, but I want you to know that you should correct. There's 2 misspellings on page 400 or something." Just things that I would never, and I would go, "Shoot, that's terrible. I hate that." But those would be comments like that just to tell me that what I did wrong, And so I've always been amused by that. But I have felt like, and then at that time when I had the textbook, my passion, and still is now, is to try to keep educating and share what we know. And I was doing medical mission work at the time, which I really, really enjoy. And I just thought that it would be nice to donate the proceeds, whatever I could feel I could, do to the medical mission funds of different areas of the world. So, and the Podiatric Institute had a really vibrant medical mission, department where, Luke and others, kind of Steve Miller, they kind of started that. So I would just donate 25% of the sales into medical mission funds of different groups, and mostly the Podiatric Institute. So, I always felt good about that, because I just was hoping that we could just keep sharing what we do in a way that's positive.
I would say that's very positive. I think it's great, your relationship with Luke. I've known Luke for many years, and I mean, what a tremendous, I hate to use the term asset, but to the profession, he just is such a role model for everybody, and he's incredible.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I've always valued that friendship so much.
That's great. So Joe, where were you going to head next here?
Well, actually, that's a really nice. I wasn't going to go here yet, but while we're talking about the impact of people in our life, are there any particular you've spoken about Dr. Yu, Gerard Yu, Luke Ciccinelli? What other mentors had a big impact on your life? And they don't necessarily have to be just in the podiatric world. If there are other people that impacted you.
Well, I would say that when I get a chance to educate now, I usually have a slide. Well, I have similar things I always do, but first thing, I always just like to share all these funny wine labels from where I live in Sonoma County that are foot related, foot names. And there's believe it or not, there's Talus wine, there's Malleolus wine, there's Blackfoot. There's a lot of foot references in wine. So I always share that because I just find humor in that. But I always tell the audience to thank your mentors, because I just feel like there's such a simple thing to say, and people, I mean, I know you guys have been such, proponents of that. I've heard that in some of the dean's chats that you've put out. But I just think that's really meaningful, because, we all have incredible mentors, and most of us probably know who they are and think about them often, but maybe not all the time. And from where we've come to where we are, high school, elementary, high school, college, teachers, professors, friends, family members that just kind of influence you one special moment or another, that kind of give you hope and direction. It's just something that I feel it's nice for them to know that they played a role in your success, or maybe some evolution of your thought, because I think that's meaningful to them. Like I just know that if someone thanks me sometimes for something, I just feel touched, and I feel happy that I could help in a positive way. So so I just feel like we need to thank our mentors. Absolutely. So my more recent mentors are the people in my education through podiatry. I mean, I was feeling like when I show that slide, I always show a picture of Dr. Dalton McLaren and John Rook. Those two to me are just incredible individuals that have dedicated their life to podiatry. Those are the people that were right under, right there where I was training. So that's obviously who I remember and thank often. But, there's other faculty members, clearly, Alan Banks and Louis Jimenez and Stan Kalish and, Tom Kane. There's a bunch of names, but I think we all have names like that, right? We all know those people. So I would really encourage people to do that. And unfortunately, I mentioned that one day you wake up and your mentor may be gone, so, I remember so I show a picture of Gerard, so we all have our own pictures of people that have passed suddenly, and maybe regret not thanking them more, or sharing some of your gratitude with them while you could, and maybe more consistently as well. So I try to really do that, and so I call them when I can, and I visit them every time I'm in Atlanta. I just had lunch with Dr. McGlamry. He's 93, 94. It's just incredible. Still wears a tie and, button up collared shirt, and still makes jokes, and it's remarkable. So, but I just feel, that is such an important thing. And I feel like hopefully they understand how important they have been in my life. So I just like sharing that. And, but I have so many mentors through the profession. I think I credit where I am to just taking a little bit of positive, I don't know, little words of advice from everybody around me that I really have had time to spend time with. I mean, I have people from every part of, our podiatric profession, these big educational groups like the Seattle group and the Pittsburgh group, the Kaiser groups of Northern California, Deaconess, the New England group out of Boston. I just feel like there are so many incredible educational, programs that have contributed to where we are. And all the leaders in those groups, I think, are mentors of mine. But I also feel that your mentor doesn't have to be older than you. It could be someone younger that you are inspired by, because you're just doing so much good work, and they're just, pushing the limit and doing much. I mean, I always remember that I was given a lecture as a third-year resident one year, and I went to a program, and I am waking up in the morning, and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't know, no one's going to be here at this meeting. I go to give my talk, and Guido Laporta is sitting right in like the second row. And I go, wow, Guido, what are you doing here? Why are you here? It's like 7 in the morning, or 8 in the morning, Sunday morning. But listen, I go to every lecture I can, because I feel like I'm going to learn something new every time I listen to someone else speak. And I was just blown away. I mean, that was probably like 34 years ago. And I have just been so impressed with that. And I feel, I mean, I think that I was always objectively thinking about, how I can learn, and and staying objective, but I just always found inspiration from that because he was someone that was so seasoned, but I think he just kept himself young and his mind young by staying present. And so if you ever go to the meeting, I'm pretty much the second or third person in a row every meeting I go to now. I mean, I just love listening to anyone talk because they put their time and effort into educating, and I just think it's worth hearing what they're going to say. So I just think it's good to stay objective and keep learning. Um, and so and then when I do that, I go to ACFAS, I get frustrated because I can't go to every track, there's like 4 or 5 competing tracks at the same time. But I'll listen to young guys that just finished and had great training, people that are up and coming. All of them are exciting to me. And I just love where the profession is going. And I have mentors that are younger than me that I just feel like have done more and have taken advantage of what they've been given, and they've taken it to another level, and levels that I don't think I will get to in my career. And I just think of anyone that I can learn from, I just look up to in that way, that I appreciate that.
I really like that. I mean, what a wonderful perspective and what a wonderful outlook on our wonderful profession. It's come so far. I mean, Tom, since we were in school, think about all the changes and surgical advancements, and it's wonderful to see optimism in the profession, and you don't see that all the time. So this is like breath of fresh air. Thank you.
And a perfect segue into some of the work that you have done in terms, I know not as much a political figure, but you have been very active in the board of directors with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, the California Board of Podiatric Medicine. You've served on the editorial board for both the Journal of Foot and Ankle Surgery, as well as the Journal of the American Podiatric Medical Association. What I think may be an interesting segue then is if you can talk a little bit, I don't want to say decade, but we'll put it at a decade. It's a completely arbitrary metric. Has their own kind of unique challenges and opportunities. Can you talk about some of the things that you've seen change over time that you think are really good, positive change, and then some of the things that you think maybe we still have to work on?
Well, yeah, boy, that's a great question. So as I was, at the school and being involved with teaching and projects and different types of things that would come along, I always embraced them. I just thought it would give me good exposures to get, a little bit more awareness of what other groups are doing and what they're doing importantly every day. And so when I was asked to maybe be partly political aspects where I might be, able to chair a regional part of, ACFAS, I would just always try to take those on or be exam committee of ABFAS and all those things. And every time I've done that, I've just been enriched so many ways, because the people that are also interested in those positions are just dynamic individuals, from different regions and different trainings and whatnot. So I've always felt like such a great collaborative group of people. So I sometimes wish I had my life set where I could have been committed to maybe the board of directors at the national level of ACFAS. I've always thought it would be such an incredible journey to explore what it might be to be a leader at ACFAS and really try to make a difference in the direction that the profession goes. But there's other things that pull you, family and other responsibilities, and recognizing what you're good at and what you're maybe not really good at. So I just now have stepped back and realized that I don't have that commitment to be an officer in a large national organization. I just can do things regionally. And so I just try to contribute when I can that way. But I just think that my hope is that, well, first of all, I've seen the growth of podiatry, which is just so remarkable all throughout the country. And I say that in terms of integration with other medical specialties. Like I've been so lucky to be part of an orthopedic group, which I feel maybe has some parity in terms of what the community recognizes podiatry as, integrated in the same groups, business-wise, service-wise as, the orthopedic surgeons in the community. I think that's kind of where podiatry always kind of struggled with, those back and forth, struggles between the two specialties. But I think when we're invited and we're integrating well and we succeed in those partnerships, I think it really speaks a lot for where we've come and how far we've come. And so I'm hopeful that that's going to continue, and I think it will, because it's obviously kind of the way that's worked in so many areas of the country now. Um, I, I would just say that I'm a little bit, as I listen, kind of from afar as an observer, I just love hearing about success in schools, but I know the schools are struggling. Obviously, I'm not going to speak to you about that because I just know that they're struggling in terms of, I guess, maybe enrollment, from what I've heard. I remember, hearing some deans talking at ABFAS recently, talking about the enrollment and where the numbers are. And I know that everyone's working overtime to figure out how to improve that. And I just hope that that can be something that, as a collective collaborative effort between the organizations, that we can all combine and get the word out that podiatry is an incredible profession. I think we all sit back and say that, but maybe not enough of us are doing enough to help it fill the classes at the stage, and that they're not being looked at as a good alternative for people, going to DO and MD programs, and we're just not getting some of the same applicant pools. It just makes me sad a little bit, and I just think that I'm just hoping that there are going to be ways that we can improve that, because everyone knows how remarkable it is once you're in the community and helping out, but it just seems to be tough to get the word out at the levels that people can make early decisions to look at podiatry. So that's the struggle that I think about. My hope in my career is that maybe I can go back in the future and go back to a school. I started at the school and I thought I was, pretty motivated and smart, and I gave as much as I could, but I think I could give a lot more now, if I came back now, because now I've had the opportunity to have private practice and really know a little bit more about patients and what might be helpful to share with students over the last 30 plus years of working, so, and I think that's nice to have that opportunity to maybe go back and give back at a later time in my career when I have a little bit more to offer. And I just am looking forward to that. I think that's part of my future.
I think your phone might be ringing off the hook next week or after this gets published.
He put it out there into the universe.
Well, yeah, I probably should check with family members first. But no. I mean, I just think that it's, I mean, I would love to talk to you too one day and interview you guys to see how you feel being there right now, because you know so much more, and maybe what that might, maybe I'll call you about that, just because I'd love to know what excites you and what the struggles might be, and maybe there can be some collaborative discussion about that. I think that there's value in that to keep getting better and getting those schools filled.
Absolutely.
That could be a fun episode, Jeff. A reversal.
Oh, I like that. So Tom, you can be our guest host, and then Joe and I'll be your guest.
Okay.
But it's interesting you say that, because I think the challenge, numbers are a challenge and applicant pool's the challenge. I think we need better applicants, right? And not just more applicants. And there's a lot of options for students out there. They're going NP, they're going PA, they're going DO, they're going MD. And it's incumbent upon us as a profession to brand ourselves in a way so the public knows what we do, so that when Joe and I are out recruiting students, it's not like trying to define the profession, then recruit them. That's a tough ask, if someone doesn't know what they're getting into at all.
Yeah. Well, you probably know kind of how the recruitment or the word gets out now, and how we're marketing podiatry to the communities out there at a early level. But I think that's part of it too. I mean, everyone seems to know what an MD does or a dentist does, but and I think the ADA and maybe the AMA have done a good job of that. I just think that there's ways that we can get better at that, right? So But again, I'm not suggesting they're not doing a good enough job at all, because I'm not gonna ever say that, because I'm not actively doing that. I just love to see that the deans are announcing to the audiences that oh boy, it's incredible. We've got such an incredible pool of applicants. It's looking up in all levels, and that would make me happy.
Me too. That's the plan, Tom, for sure. So you had mentioned things that pull you in different directions. What do you do when you're not engrossed in podiatric medicine and surgery and teaching, family-wise or recreationally? What do you do? What turns you on?
Well, I actually love soccer, like I mentioned. That's been a big part of my life, and got me into foot and ankle. I definitely always credit, my early love for soccer to give me this career. So I still love and enjoy going to games and watching and traveling to parts of the world to watch. I made a commitment with my kids to try to do a World Cup event every 4 years with, the World Cup, whether we're in the country or we're at a surrounding country where we can enjoy the excitement that country has with their team. And so I just feel like being a spectator and being a past, player, I just really enjoy all parts of that. And when we were in Philadelphia, actually, Luke, you may know, is a ex-college soccer player as well. He's a goalie, not really a player. But the bottom line is, we had a team called FC Podiatric
Oh, funny.
at the Philly school, and a lot of ex-soccer players are podiatry students. You may know that. And so we had a really good team, and we actually won the professional league in Philadelphia. And then so when I went out to California, CCPM, that's one of the first things I requested, that we could start a team there. So, and so back then we started a team. You probably know these players, but like people like Lawrence Ford and Graham Hamilton and
All
Danny
this,
Chang,
I'm writing this down to start asking them about.
they all played on the team, and it was just fun to kind of share that. So I just still love incorporating, that into podiatry when I can. When I had more energy, I was hoping to start a huge national club, but but nowadays, when I mention that, half the guys are worried they're going to get hurt if they go out and play, and so we just don't do that. But no, so that's what I love to do, and I would just say, as a very happy note, I just got married about 3 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. So my life is now also focused on that next phase of my new journey and with my wife, and we're gonna try to do more family focused things. So it's yeah, it's part of that. My career coming to maybe a slower place, and then maybe exploring more personal goals of mine, and then I'm lucky to have 3 kids that are just very kind of active and very inquisitive people, and I probably learned more from my kids just trying to be, a parent that's, available and whatnot to their lives, than they probably learned from me. I mean, I think hopefully it's mutual, but I, that's why I feel like I can learn from anyone, because I started learning these incredible life lessons from my kids just by simple things of different things they would share with me, on ways that I could be a better parent, or different ways that I've kind of maybe approached things that they feel like wasn't helpful for them. And so anyways, I just feel like that I'm continually learning. It's fun. It's fun to just wake up and say, what am I going to learn today? Because I'm going to learn something more, and hopefully I can share some knowledge. But I feel like I'm just able to be, learning more and more, just if I just am open to it. And I think that at any level of your life, if you're open to all the opportunities that come across you every day, you'll learn just as much as you did when you were younger. And it's pretty good to just always be open-minded, I think. So that's what I'm focusing now, and just trying to create a life for me and my new partner, and maybe plan a future that I am excited about. And then my mom's in her 90s. She's in Seattle, so I'll be more active, I think, in her life, and I know that that's important. So I'll definitely try to do that. And then the beautiful thing too is I have this wonderful family, which we all are, we all have different families, but Gerard's family, they have 5 kids. He has 5 kids, and I'm very, very close and active with them when I can be. And so it's just nice to keep those relationships going,
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful. Tom, when we first started this podcast, we said that hour's going to go by really fast. It's gone by really fast. You are just a phenomenal guest and so insightful, and you've given so much back to our profession. Thank you on behalf of the profession, I guess. So appreciate all you do.
Wow. Well, I'm just happy that I can still be part of whatever growth there is. Like I said, it excites me just as much when I get something of an invite that I can participate in. I just know I'm going to get something out of it myself. So I just look forward to it. And I will tell you, I just want to say that I have listened to some of these Dean's chats, which I feel is a huge it's a huge educational format for the whole world to learn about podiatry, right? I'm sure you have students that enter into our schools now because they heard a Dean's Chat podcast that got them excited, which is, recruitment on a completely different level, the social media level that we all need to, learn more about and incorporate into our lives, because this is it. But I think the way you're reaching out to educate our profession in a positive way to, the community of future students and doctors now it's just remarkable. So thanks for your vision to doing that. And it's you have a gift for interviewing. Not everyone can interview well, So
well, I always say that you're only as good as the people you interview. So you make it easy, Tom. So Joe and I just get to sit back and ask some questions. But thank you. We appreciate certainly the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for the invite.
You're welcome. And Tom, we're going to send you a Dean's Chat cup. You can't put wine in there. Sonoma wine will go really well. And I'd like to also just say to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating or maybe even leave a couple comments. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Until next week, everybody, Dr. Chang, thanks again. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.